Good to catch up. It's been kind of a news-heavy couple of days in and around the Saints, and obviously the quarterback conversation is where we begin. So, what do you make of the Derek Carr signing?
Well, I think it was the best available option by a pretty wide margin, I think the Saints very quickly zeroed in on him as their guy, and they made every single possible effort to go for him because I really don't think they liked any of the options behind him. I think they kind of viewed some of the potential guys who they could fit in who weren't Derek Carr as kind of. My dog there.
Tell the dogs we said hello. It's always good to hear from them as well. It's been a while.
Dogs are all about the Derek Carr signing. No, I was saying, I think they viewed some of the guys out there who weren't Derek Carr as, kind of comparable to Andy Dalton, right? I think they liked Andy Dalton. They liked what he did last year, but they didn't want to bring him back as their starting quarterback. If they're going to go get somebody who's not Derek Carr, they kind of viewed them through the same lens, except they'd be more expensive. So, I think they put everything they had into going to get Carr, into making sure he was their guy, and they got it done. And honestly, I know $150 million seems like a lot, especially for a guy who's in 9 years as a starter has played in one playoff game. But if he is anywhere close to what they think he's going to be, that's a pretty big bargain considering some of the other deals that are going to be signed by NFL quarterbacks in this coming 3 or 4 months.
I mean, Luke, yesterday we came on the air and Michael Borky tells me that the Saints are back. They're going 17-0 and they might as well cancel the season because it's just a formality. You're not ready to go quite that far, are you?
No. Look, I am not. I'm not even going to say they belong as a Super Bowl contender right now, right? I think they've got work to do. But look, there's no getting around it. It is the most important position in football. Okay. If you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to do anything, right? And I think all it really takes when you have a guy you trust, a quarterback, is I think it's a lot easier to hit on some of the other positions, right? Like you're not going to have a draft class like 2017 very often. Those are exceedingly rare. But if you get a 2017 like draft class and you have a quarterback, you're like all of a sudden you can change a team's fortunes like that. So it was the most important question they had to answer this offseason. They had to do something big, and I think they did. And now their chances of fielding a much better team around them are much better than if they were going into this, hoping to hit on a rookie quarterback, or hoping Jimmy G is not just kind of a product of the 49ers system, and and then he stays healthy for the first time in a couple of years. I just think it's they're in a much better place right now than they were at this time last year, or much more than they were at this time 3 days ago.
So how would you classify Derek Carr? As serviceable, as good, as really good, as exceptional?
I think he's good, right? I think if you're looking at him, he is historically middle of the road NFL starter, good NFL starter. I think like a top 12 to 15, right? And that is he's done that while playing for a dysfunctional organization. He's never played with a good defense. He's got that here. He's had some good pass catchers, but nobody he's played really extensively with. So I think he's good with the potential to be really good, right? Top 10, top 8. I don't think he's ever going to be the guy who you look at and say they're immediately Super Bowl contender, right? Or a favorite. But I think he can be a really, really important piece. And if you do the right things, building a roster around him, I think you have a chance to be a team that contends and competes.
All right,
and that's exactly what the Saints want to be. I think they should be. Look, they've kind of caught some flack because they're always up against the salary cap, and people are wondering why they're going for it, why they're being aggressive. But I'd much rather have that than be rooting for the Jets and your team sucks every year, and you just got to gut the fact that your team is going to suck until it hits a lucky lottery ticket.
So, Luke, you're only supposed to lead me into one question at a time, not into my next two questions. But you hit on both of those, salary cap and roster construction. Let's start with the salary cap, because for the 75th consecutive year, the Saints are over the cap, and we're all worried, oh, gosh, how are they going to get under the cap? And they always do. What are the moves that they're going to make ultimately to get under that number so that they're in a spot to move forward into the new league year?
Yeah. Look, I know we kind of like talk about it like jokingly because this is like a topic of conversation every year. But look, with each additional year that they do this and they keep tacking on void years and pushing money down the road, I mean it becomes harder, right? They're going to be paying some guys this year a lot of money to not play football for them, and that's a direct result of the way they've managed the cap. So it's going to be hard. I think they've to this point cleared something like $42 million in 2023 cap space, and they still got like $18 million to go just to be solvent, right? And then they got to fit in Derek Carr's cap number. I don't know the exact specifics on it yet, but I mean, probably with a prorated bonus, going to be somewhere in the realm of $8 or $9 million this year. It's going to be tough. I mean, they're going to have to restructure a guy like Cam Jordan. They might have to make some cuts of players they don't really want to cut. They might not be able to keep some guys they want to keep. It's going to be hard for them to keep Caden Ellis. When you're just thinking about smartly allocating resources, as much as you'd love to have a really young ascending player, it doesn't make sense for them to pay $8 or $9 million a year or more to somebody who's going to be their third linebacker when they only have two guys on the field. I mean, probably not. So, they got a lot of work to do still, and it's going to be really intriguing to see what they do with some guys. They're going to try to get Michael Thomas to take a pay cut. We'll see if he does that. They're going to try. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Jameis Winston. It makes more sense for them to release him as a post-June 1st cut. But the problem with doing that is you don't realize the cap savings until June 2nd. I don't know. They've got a lot of stuff to figure out. Luckily for them, Kai Harley is way smarter than I am. He probably has all these moves mapped out. He probably has for 2 years by now. But it's a lot. And what was the next part?
Well, I was just going to say the final thing, we've got about 2.5 minutes left, is when you look at the draft and you think about, you mentioned the 2017 draft a second ago. You think about positions of need. You think about guys that they may have to cut between now and, then, because they're making room for guys coming in, which are less expensive. Where are you targeting, especially in the first round and then in terms of needs during this draft?
So, I think there's three very clear spaces where they need to address. All right. And it's, to me, as the roster currently stands, as running back, a receiver or tight end, just somebody who's going to be like a big-bodied 50-50 target winner, and interior defensive line. And I think they could go any one of those directions at number 29, number 40, whatever. It just kind of depends on who's there. I was looking around at some of the mock drafts, and a couple of them had him taking Clemson defensive tackle Brian Bresee with their number one pick, and I think that'd be a good pick. Yeah. He's a guy I'm not sure will be there, but if he is, he'd be awesome. He fills a huge need for them. They have one defensive tackle on their roster right now. If Bijan Robinson falls toward the back end of the first round, if he's there at 29, absolutely. He's a great football player. But if he's there at like 27 or 26, do the Saints try to trade up for him? I mean, maybe it could be a huge part of what they do this year, especially with Alvin Kamara facing some sort of elite discipline. Or maybe there's this class of tight ends is awesome. And look, Jawan Johnson played really well last year. I still really like Adam Troutman. I think he's a big part of what they do. But the fact of the matter is that when it came down to 3rd and 7, their 3rd and goal from the 7, they had nobody they could throw the ball to last year because they didn't really trust anybody to go make a contested catch. They probably lost. And they're I had guys with the Saints tell me they feel like they lost 3 games last year because they didn't have that guy. Wow. It's a really, really important part of their offense. So any one of those three positions, even if they bring Mike Thomas back, I expect them to go get a contested catch guy. They're really important. They will address them this offseason in some way, shape, or form through free agency or the draft or both.
Look, great catching up, man.